I got you. For sure.
He said, "Are you wearing a cape?"
Oh, yes. Yes.
Hello.
All heroes don't wear capes. You know that, David.
How are you doing?
He said, "How are you doing?"
What? I wanted him to say it. I didn't want to hear it from you. Listen, I only have room for 2 Davids in my life, and you're about to get put out. Hello, David. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you. Glad to see
doing
you.
well and looking well, if I might. You haven't aged a day since we talked last.
Well, maybe on closer inspection, you might change that, but thank you.
But I also want to say, before, I know we're already recording, but I do want to say, thank you. I won't say what you said, but thank you for such kind words in this. I did read those words and I took them to heart. So thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
But I do want to say thank you so much for those kind words. I've gotten many books before, some signed, but no one's ever actually taken the time, other than my yearbook, and those people really don't count, to write me a message, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I meant them.
Ditto.
Yes. Oh, don't say ditto now. You didn't thank him for the words. You find something else to thank him for.
No, I appreciate holding this. It's so much easier to make the commitment to go to my computer, pull up the PDF, sit there where I have to sit the rest of my life and read something to be able to just, pull it out.
I guess we'll discuss it again, but there's so many little short, nifty stories in here. It's like, you don't have to make a commitment to, like, there's this 3-year journey of this book you have to read. And it's like, you know what, I'm going to go in and jump out. Or you can flip. Like, I know we had talked about the book at first, but when I went in, I'm like, man, these are really like I met this guy at an airport story. Like, and I love that. It's a collection of stories. Hey, bravo, sir. Bravo.
David McGiffert's book begins with a foreword by screenwriter Bob Gale saying, "There is no shortage of fascinating memoirs about Hollywood. There are memoirs by movie stars, directors, producers, and studio executives. There are memoirs by character actors, composers, film editors, and even cinematographers. And I've read quite a few, but until now, I've never read, much less even heard of, a memoir by an assistant director, which is a shame, because assistant directors, or ADs as we call them, have great tales to tell. An AD is uniquely positioned at the center of a production in all of its moving parts, the conduit between everything and the director. If the production was a human body, the AD is the heart that keeps the blood pumping to all the necessary places. And David McGiffert was the heart of telling many amazing stories. 1976 King Kong, An Officer and a Gentleman, Tootsie, Back to the Future, Rain Man, Batman Returns, The People vs. Larry Flint, Man on the Moon, and Vanilla Sky, just to name a few. Could you imagine getting to peek around the memories of someone with such a fascinating vantage point? Well, imagine no more. Well, not really. Never stop imagining. But imagine no more what it would feel like to peek around the memories of someone with such a fascinating vantage point. In this series, we will talk about the stories behind the stories of David McGiffert's memoir, Best Seat in the House. This is Best Seat with David McGiffert.
Today, we are getting into 3 chapters from Mr. McGiffert's Best Seat in the House right here. I can hold it. I'm going to hold it up so many times. One of them is about a film production landing him right here in sunny Florida for the holidays. And another 2 chapters are about working on a film that is controversially on the Christmas watch list in many homes. We won't spoil it yet. So the first story is about working on a set that you damn near went straight into after working on 1976's King Kong. I wanted to hang out on King Kong for a little bit before we got into the actual stories, because that was just such a cool production. You were...
Oh, I'm sorry. You can go. You need your own screen, man. Go ahead.
You get into King Kong quite a bit in the book. There's at least 6 chapters to cover it, and I don't want to spoil too much, but there was the helicopter ride stood out to me with you have the director, the pilot, the director, he was in a pilot in the Royal Air Force, and then the pilot who was in the German Air Force was such a great story. And then that was like your first helicopter ride, right?
It was a first for a lot of things, yeah.
Well, the way you described the story,
my first ride with a Luftwaffe pilot,
the story when you guys came down on the close to the water, just the way you described how I've never been in a helicopter before, but I felt like I was after reading that. But then the punchline at the end, where the 2 people up front were essentially, do you think that was that the pilot was really in the German Air Force, or was he just given the directorship because he said he was in the Royal Air Force, or is that true?
It never occurred to me that he wasn't. This guy was dead serious. I mean, he is flying important people around. I let him know that this was scouting for a pretty big movie. He was very serious about everything that he did. Our producer jumped out of the van that the John Gilliman, the director, came in and ran over to the pilot while Gilliman was talking with his cinematographer. And I saw them in conversation, and I didn't actually hear till after that he had asked the pilot whether it was okay for Gilliman to sit in the co-pilot seat. And then he came over and told John, yes, it's all worked out. Apparently, John had asked Christian Ferry to go over and ask this guy if it would be okay, because he very much wanted to be in the front of the helicopter. And so he jumped right in, and he's smoking a pipe the whole time, which I thought was kind of weird. Usually you don't do that in aircraft. And the reason I noticed it is because there was a little window by the director's side that every time he took a puff out of the pipe, it just went and just sucked the smoke out of that little window. Just one of the little oddities that your brain goes off on.
Mm-hmm.
And Gilliman watched every move that this guy made when he was starting up the helicopter, what he did with the cyclical or whatever they call that thing, and how he watched the rotor blades starting to go and checking the instruments. And Gilliman's just watching him the whole time, And then all of a sudden we're out of there. And it happened really fast. I thought, okay, this is good. We're lifting off. But we were already, by the time that thought got through my head, we were like 75 or 100 feet in the air. And as I wrote, I was trying to be cool, because this is my first helicopter ride. I didn't have a country clue what to expect, except that I thought it'd be fun. And, we were flying at a few thousand feet. I don't really know. I don't remember how much, but enough so you could see the beach and a lot of Santa Monica. And Gilliman's looking around, and we're in the back. It was Dick Klein, the cinematographer, Christian Ferry, one of the producers, and me. And for some reason, we couldn't hear each other very well. Just the way the engine sound was in the back. We could hear the pilot and John Gilliman perfectly. The acoustics were perfect. We had everything they said. And so as we got out over the water, Gilliman asked the pilot if he could, take it down a little lower to see what it was like going a little lower over the water. I think he was thinking of maybe helicopter shots for when he was going to do the freighter when it came in. I mean, the oil tanker that we were going to use. And so this guy took it down, and I can't remember really how far down it was, but it was enough so that we were moving up and down with the swells. The swells were pretty big.
Yeah.
And we weren't skimming the water or anything. It was like 50 feet, but it was enough so you could, you were kind of rising and falling in the seat as he lifted it up over the swells and stuff. And it was cool. And then, Gilliman's watching everything. And then he turned to the guy and he looked at him for a second. And then he said, he said, I was in the RAF during the war. I was a pilot. And, I didn't know this, I was thinking, wow, that's cool. That's unusual. And he didn't look old enough to me, honestly, to have been a pilot in the war at that point. And the pilot didn't do anything. He just says, and didn't really do too much. And we're going up and down, and we're looking out the windows, and then turns to him and he said, yeah, that's odd. He said, that's strange. He said, I was in the Luftwaffe. And it was just like blackout, just like, whoop. I remember, just going, that's kind
there
of
was
I
we
can
look at
move
each
if
other.
y'all want me to.
Yeah, there was silence after that, right?
And this is your first helicopter ride?
Yeah.
And your last.
No, but I mean, and Gilliman never answered him or anything. They just sat back in the seats, and the guy flew the helicopter, and Gilliman looked out the window and puffed on his pipe and kind of watched what was going on. And we made the rest of it. And they chatted. Once we landed, they chatted and stuff. And it wasn't like it was some kind of enmity between them at all. But it was just that moment, just that, this is why I wrote them. This is why I want my kids to know, because just the flash of that few seconds of realizing what that interchange had been, but that was a classic,
Yeah.
who the hell has that happen?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
it's
never talked to Gilliman about it or anybody else. We got out of the helicopter on the way back and never mentioned it. We all just went back around, doing our work and stuff. It never really came up again. But that few minutes, the few minutes in the back watching them, we were kind of like, did you hear what I just heard?
Yeah, I'd be sitting there like, I hope they work their differences out.
Yes, with me out the helicopter.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, you started out as a location scout, but then by the end of the production, you were first AD. So what I wanted to ask about it, because we both noticed that doesn't just happen. So either two or three things happen. Number one, you know what you're doing. Number two, people really like you. So both of those things are true. But could you talk to us about that journey from starting out just as a scout and how you got all the way up to first AD?
Yes, I'll try and make it brief. I was hired. Brian Frankish heard that there was a job opening for a location scout. He had just been hired on King Kong, and this is a guy who essentially changed my life. I'm having lunch with him tomorrow, P.S. So we're still friends. He called me up and said he missed me and he loved me, and why had we not gone to lunch? So we made a lunch date.
Nice.
So I went in with my skimpy resume. I think I had 140 days as a first AD on independent shows, and lots of PA days doing whatever PAs do, just everything. And the guy who interviewed me was a man named Jack Grossberg, who'd been in the business for 25 or 30 years at that point, was executive in charge of all the production on King Kong. And there was no question about the fact that he was in charge. He made that very clear. But he was a wonderful guy and a softie once you got to know him. Just wonderful man. I stayed friends with him for years. In fact, until he died. But he just said, well, tell me about your experience. And I brought in my little sheet of paper, and I handed it to him. I was nervous and I had real long hair, and Brian told me I had to cut my hair before I went for the interview. I said, I'm not doing that. What if I don't, get the job or get a haircut? So he hired me, and I was surprised by that. But I came off pretty confident for what little I knew, and he was nice. So I felt relaxed. So I went off scouting for a couple of weeks on the California coastline, looking for a beach that people from the ship could come onto shore of the island. They needed shots of people coming onto a beach. They eventually did it in Kauai, where they shot everything else about that island. And then at one point, about 3 weeks into my being a location scout, I was talking with Grossberg. I used to go to his office a lot and ask questions and listen to what he had to say to other people. And he let me do that. He was very generous. And he said, you have enough days here to go petition the DGA to get into the Directors Guild. You should do that because there are going to be other jobs opening up. We're going to have a bunch of units going when we start shooting. And, it'll be a good experience for you. Why don't you do that? I got into the DGA. Grossberg put me on a number of second units. One of them was Rick Baker crashing through the wall, that whole miniature sequence.
Yeah.
A lot of them were different miniature shots that they needed. Meeting the super tanker in the Catalina Channel to do aerial shots. And I went out and with a group of extras and a crew, a set decorating crew, that we this 900-foot long super tanker emerges out of the fog, and we had to climb up like the equivalent of 4 stories or 5 stories of stairs with all our junk, It was dramatic and fun. And I was just on this gigantic adventure. Stuff just kept happening and happening and happening. And I was too busy to really wonder what was going on. I just kept being given these jobs. Ultimately, the company moved in July of 1976 to Manhattan. The first unit was doing everything having to do with the World Trade Center. And the second unit was shooting aerial plate shots that were going to be used for the ending as background plates. And we were doing things of soldiers coming across some of the bridges into Manhattan, people standing out in front of the library where the giant Kong shadow goes across, and everybody, retreats back behind the pillars. And so we were shooting it all night, and I was asleep at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I got a phone call. My phone rang, and hello, I'm asleep. And this woman said, hello, this is Dino De Laurentiis' office, and Mr. De Laurentiis would like to know if you could come down to his office at noon. He would like to speak with you. And I said, of course, and hung up the phone and panicked because I thought I was being fired, and I was tired, and I, couldn't quite figure out why in the hell I was being called down to the Gulf Western building to talk to Dino De Laurentiis. I don't think I'd ever talked to him before. And so I went and, was eventually led into this giant office that he had, and he was not a big man, but he had a big office and a big desk and a chair in the middle of the room. And over on one side, there were a couple of sets of couches. And John Gillerman, the director, was there. The two producers were there. The production manager were there. And then Dino. And he said, David, yes. I sat down. He said, we were wondering whether you would be able to take over the first unit tonight. We've had a problem, and we need you to be the first AD. What do you? And I went blank again. I went blank a lot in my early days. It just, things happened that were just too big to actually be able to comprehend. And I stumbled out, yes. And I literally, I don't think it went on much beyond that. He asked Jack Grossberg to give me the call time for the first unit. I think they handed me a call sheet. And he said, okay, that's very good. You can go. We'll have a car pick you up. And all of a sudden, I was on the first unit. And the first night of shooting was all the soldiers spilling into the plaza, and trucks and police cars and pandemonium.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was over my head the whole way. And I cannot tell you how kind people were around me. But everybody kind of understood, what was going on. And they were, for Jessica Lange, it was her first movie too, that way, and we were both just in overwhelm all the time. That's kind of, and then I lasted on the first unit till we stopped shooting in I think November of '76.
I think that really speaks to you, and I thank you for explaining that. I think it really speaks to your work ethic, because number one, you wouldn't have been nominated or recommended for the job if they didn't know that you were a hard worker. But number two, more importantly, that the people, the PAs and the people under you who knew you've gotten this promotion now still respect you in that role. Because I always tell people that supervisor, director, no matter what it is, I don't want anybody who wants the title. I want somebody who knows how to do the job. And clearly that's why you got the job.
Yes, I mean, there were a lot of things I didn't know, and everybody knew that, including Gilliman. Gilliman really knew, because I'd made a few huge mistakes with him as as a scout, which I'll tell you sometime. It was just kind of crazy. I couldn't even believe he'd even speak to me after the mistakes I made. But Gilliman constantly asked me questions, and a lot of times they were in front of the crew, and he knew damn well I didn't know. But that was one of the ways that he taught his assistants to think on their feet. I didn't realize at the time that the second unit director, Bill Kroenig, had been his assistant director on a film that John did called Bridge at Remagen, I think, which is a very cool war film. I don't know if you've ever seen it. But I didn't know that about Bill Kroenig. He was this very soft-spoken man, very genteel, sophisticated, kind. I couldn't imagine him working with John almost as much as I could imagine myself working with him.
Yeah.
He was tough, but he knew what the film had to be. He knew more than anybody what had to happen on the film. And he tried to impart a lot of what he was doing to me in very nice ways that I didn't expect, because he was quite a taskmaster too.
You had brought up Jessica Lange being her first film, and I know it was early in Jeff Bridges' career. They're both still like making great art to this day. What were they like working with early in their careers like that?
Sweethearts.
And
Just dear people, kind people. They made everything easy. There was never any star stuff, you know. They were always very affable, helpful. Charles Grodin too. Charles Grodin was just fantastic, you know, just really funny man. Always kind of nervous and high strung, so we got along. It was an amazing film in a lot of ways. There were a lot of people on the film who were some of the best in the business at the time. And so to be a new guy in amongst this experience was just, and for Jesse too, and for these PAs, that, you know, it was just an extraordinary experience. I mean, that's why I wrote so much about it, because it continued to resonate really all through my work.
Yeah, and you went on to work with Jeff Bridges again in Fisher King, and there's a when I was reading so Empire of the Ants, which we'll get to, led me to King Kong. This is what I love about your book, because then I'm in King Kong and I see Jeff Bridges and I'm like, I wonder if Jeff Bridges comes up in here or anywhere else. So then I did a search for Jeff Bridges, and that brought me to chapter 47, working on the Fisher King, which led me to an amazing story with Robin Williams. And if imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, you are one of few people that get to say you've witnessed firsthand Robin Williams do an impression of you, which is unbelievable. Like, I can't even, you talk about these surreal moments that I could not imagine processing the fact that Robin Williams is doing a spot on impression of me in his exaggerated way. How
I'd nerd out. I'd geek out if that happened, because you know we love Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Well, it just made me feel so good. That was the first thing. I've been called into the film. I replaced the AD. The AD got a job as a director or something during the second week of shooting, and I'm in my goofy little apartment in Westwood, you know, and I get this call out of nowhere asking me if I'm busy right now. Deborah Hill, the producer, called me and said, "Hi, are you busy right now?" And I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" You know, and then she told me. And the next night, I was in New York, and I was picked up at the airport, taken out to the set. I went for a day with this other AD. You know, he paced me through a night of shooting, and then he was gone. And I was there with Terry Gilliam, and it was probably I don't remember how long. Very shortly after, we're shooting, I want to say Sheep's Meadow, but I'm not sure it was that particular meadow, but it was a big open area in Central Park, and we were going to do something with Robin out there, doing what Robin does. And it poured rain out of nowhere. I mean, you know, nobody saw it coming. We got caught, but we had a cover set. So everybody took off, you know, wardrobe people had to find their new wardrobe. Transportation people had to get parking down there. We had to load everything up. Terry's just bummed, you know, he's sitting there in a big old poncho in the rain, you know, watching everybody zoom by. And we eventually get down to this little Chinese restaurant in Chinatown. It's pouring rain still, and inside it's just kind of dank and dark, you know, there's no movie lights in there yet or anything. So it's just the restaurant lights, and everybody's drinking tea. And, you know, Robin and Terry and Jeff are talking to some wardrobe people, is how I remember it. And we're all just standing around talking. I don't even think we're sitting down. We're all just kind of standing. And all of a sudden, Robin just gets up in front of everybody, walks out in front of everybody, and starts talking, you know, in this kind of peculiar tone of voice that I don't usually hear him talking in. And everybody's listening. And like 30 seconds into it, people are starting to chuckle, and I'm starting to think that there's something very familiar about that voice. And it didn't, you know, like 3 seconds later, I suddenly realized that he had nailed my on-set way of talking and way of expressing to the crew, and he was doing it right back.
By the way, you nailed him nailing your on-screen persona or your on-set persona in writing. Like that, the way you conveyed that in the writing was, it was so like, how could you write somebody imitating somebody and make it actually make sense? But with that chapter of your book does such a good job of like the way you worded his quotes imitating you could just kind of tell that, like, I could hear you saying those words before I could hear Robin saying those words.
I think that speaks to how brilliant Robin is. And again, of course, me and you've never met him. I mean, again, they always ask you, who would you want to have a beer with in a bar? It's like, well, no, who would you want to do an impression of you? And it is Robin Williams. And just to me, and that's why I love your book and I love reading it and talking with you, because we get, especially now with him, God rest his soul, being gone, we get to see another side of it and see, listen, I think he is exactly who we thought he was. He's an everyday's man. He didn't look at you and say, here's this AD guy. Why would I even waste time with it? No, he saw a genuine soul in you, and he's just an artist. And that's like one of the greatest, as he said, compliments ever.
To do an imitation, he had to see you. He had to hear
mannerisms to get it down. He actually, like, he's probably getting paid $50 million to do a movie and read a script and learn these characters. And here you are being your genuine soul. Yeah, he had the best seat in the house that time because he was watching you.
The reason I wrote it the way I did is because I could hear Robin. That's why I wrote it the way I did, because I can hear him the way he did that. And I know how I talk, and I know how he did it, and I could hear him, and he did these little kind of mincy mannerisms that I do, that I don't really realize that I'm doing. People used to come up and say, "Were you a dancer?" It's like, no. I don't know. What are you saying? He nailed all of it. He did. Yeah. He had the hand motions, the way I cocked my head. Anyway,
that is such an awesome story. And then again, I want people to see this for themselves in the book, but I just want to say that on the subject of Robin Williams and Fisher King, that you, in chapter 49, you have it, somehow there's even a story more, at least equally as amazing as him impersonating you, was your last encounter with him. It's just incredible stories. Jessica Lange, you worked with again on Tootsie, which you talk about in chapters 34 and 23 in your book. What was like? Is there like that familiarity when you come to another set and you're working with people that you have in the past, like that? Is there like a connection that's rekindled there?
I never assumed that. I never said, okay, because I've worked with her before, now we're going to be buds on this picture. I didn't. I waited a long time before I had any one-on-one conversations with her, because I think that's unfair, number one. And number two, it's just not how I am. I respect what they're doing. I mean, you can't go up and talk to, so many people on a set, well-meaning, honestly doing it out of, the kind of wonderful people they are, but they'll go up and they'll chat with an actor as they're getting ready to do a scene, that they're forgetting this. People are trying to hold 2.5 pages of dialogue in their head, and their characterization, and what is the camera going to do, and they're trying to figure all that out, and it looks like they're just sitting there waiting for someone to come talk to them. Mm-hmm. So I was way hands off with that stuff. But once we got rolling, and we talked a little bit. I mean, I'd go on walks with her after she had Shura, then her daughter, and she would go for a walk in Central Park. She'd go, I gotta go. You want to walk with me and Shura? And we'd go for like an hour walk in the park and talk about stuff about the movie and stuff. But she was busy, and she was in a relationship with Baryshnikov, and she had a new daughter, and she had Dustin to contend with on the set, and Sydney. So I kept a light hand on it.
I think that's the best way to do it, because I guess me being an actor, I've never thought of it that way. That when he hit it right on the head. When you're getting ready for a scene, you're preparing for it, you're in that zone. But to everybody else, it looks like, oh, they're not doing shit. I mean, they just waiting for the cameras to roll. No, we're in that character, or we should be anyway, and we're trying to get there, and we don't. So that was the perfect way to. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So back to King Kong into the next project. This was like, was it 12 months on King Kong or 12 months total between? So you spent 12 months on King Kong and then essentially went straight into the next one. I was looking on your IMDb. Where did Panic in Echo Park take place within that?
I don't remember at all. I think,
Okay.
what IMDb does is put the release date on things.
Yeah.
So that I don't remember whether I did that television show after King Kong. I doubt it. I had some episodes of Chips too. I don't know where that was, and that was like, holy crap, what is going on this thing? That was one. I made myself do a few episodes of television as a second assistant director because I wanted to see what it was like. And once I knew what it was like, I knew I never wanted to do that job. That is so hard. It's such a hard job. Everybody misses that position, and that job is so key, so vital to so many people.
Deadlines. Yeah.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Goodness grief. I love how when he was talking about moving, like you say, of course, we're going to get into it, how, again, I know you've done all these great things in IMDb, but it seems like you're a better person than your career will tell you, because you helped out the gentleman who needed you to AD on the first project when we talked about you coming to the greatest, most unusual state in the world, Florida. But I love one thing I read in the book. It said, a single man coming to Florida or living in Florida. That's the story of my life. So I just want to tell you, I completely understand, different time, different era, but I get it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And Absence of Malice, Up Close and Personal had a bunch of shooting in Florida.
Mhm.
I was in Florida a lot.
Well, judging by this chapter, chapter 14, by the way, if you guys are reading it along at home, this was a particularly Florida-esque situation because you get into snakes, guns, alligators, and because we're in the vein of holiday time, it's like instead of planes, trains, and automobiles, you get
alligators,
snakes, guns,
and
and alligators.
And Joan Collins. Thank you.
A treasure. Kids, if you don't know what that is, just hit YouTube. You'll find her.
So to segue from King Kong, and an acquaintance called you a few weeks after your shoot, and he really wanted to be home with his family for the holidays. He asked you to take over. So on a plane you went to spend Christmas in the Sunshine State.
At the end of King Kong, I was smoldering rubble. I was blown out. Just in so many ways. I was emotionally blown out. I was physically blown out. I was mentally blown out. And I did a lot of days where I didn't do very much. I just sat around. And I got the call from this guy. I thought I just thought, there's no way, but then I listened to him,
well, I
what are you
wanted
going
to
to do?
make a little caveat with this story, because we're talking about like, oh man, you only had a few weeks off after this 12-month job. There's probably like people like, I work literally every day of my fucking life.
Like this.
Like film sets are like, it is very
like
common with
21-hour days, if not 2 days in a row.
You need that few weeks or months even to recalibrate, to get yourself back on a normal schedule. It's just such a mentally taxing and physically taxing.
The learning curve too. The learning curve. That's
you had that on top of it.
Really was hard because everything was new all the way through that movie.
So I was curious with the the guy that you took over for on Empire of the Ants, was that like a situation where Empire of the Ants production went longer than expected, where he didn't think he was going to be going through Christmas?
No, I honestly don't remember it that way. It may have been, but I don't remember that they were wildly over schedule. I know the production manager was Neil Macklis, who was just a fantastic person. I mean, he's Jewish and he dressed up as Santa Claus at Christmas. I mean, that tells you what kind of guy that guy was. It's a cool man. I mean, and so smart and so, oh God, he made it so easy for me to come in. He's just so sweet. But I don't think they were wildly over budget. They had a lot of problems. A lot of stuff that was being worked out on the fly that shouldn't have had to have been worked out on the fly. And I think you alluded to some of that. I don't remember the sound man having the problems that Pamela Shoop does.
Okay.
but-
yeah,
But
that's
it
not
could
that's.
happen. I mean, so
I don't
much
even
stuff
wanna-
happened on that.
I don't even want to put that on Pamela. That's IMDb according to Pamela, according to IMDb. And just for those listening, it says the sound man had a fight with the director towards the end of the shoot and threw all the audio tapes into the swamp. They lost everything, so the entire film had to be looped because of this. Their voices and actions never quite mesh. Some things don't even sound true when you read them out loud, and that's one of them.
Well, what I wanted to ask was this, because again, we're transitioning from King Kong, major budget, going from location style to AD. Now you're AD doing a favor for a friend, doing a solid for a friend. And I read about a Teamsters van. I read about your apprehensions. They don't know who you are. Let me ask you this, because you may not know everything now, but like you said, you learned a lot from King Kong. What were one of the few first red flags you noticed about the film? I mean, not being negative, just like, that's not right. This seems a little off. What are some of the red flags you saw coming from that big budget now to this in chaos?
Well,
I know you're trying to be nice here, so I can see you searching for the nice ways.
No, I'm trying to be honest.
Okay.
The red flags were always for me, and when I was so new, was everything seemed off balance to me because I didn't know anything. I didn't know the director. I didn't know what the script was about. I didn't know any of the cast. I didn't know any of the crew, period. So everything was just like dropped onto another planet. And going from King Kong to the swamps, basically, of Florida, was a big change. And I had to hit the ground running. They've been shooting. They were in a rhythm. They all had their stuff worked out. When I got on the van, and people started piling in around me, they didn't even really look at me. It was like, they didn't. I don't know. I wondered to myself if they even knew that their first AD had left. And up to that point, when I first saw the crew and we started going out to the location, I could tell they were tired. It was early and everybody's on an early call, and that's one thing. But these guys were tired. They've been working hard, and working on boats in a tidal swamp is no picnic. And then you have a cast that you have to look over. So that was the first red flag for me. The other red flag was just that there was a general feeling of being off balance all the time with the show. Things kind of switched around real quick, and people got temperamental, were tired, and some of the work was confusing because the actors couldn't tell, where are we supposed to look? How big are these ants? Which direction are they coming from? What am I? There was stuff like that. Burt Gordon, I don't remember a single thing about that man. Not one. It's a complete, I don't remember what he looked like. I don't remember what he sounded like. I don't remember how he worded things. I don't remember anything about him. That I have to chalk up to fatigue. Lingering fatigue.
I could be wrong. You do remember him didn't he almost step on a snake or something happened? I know you remember that part. Okay.
That's when the record button goes on, right?
Okay.
So
okay.
the indelible record button. Do you want me to tell you that part?
Oh, please. It's a beautiful part of the story.
So, 2 weeks into it, I had my feet under me. I kind of understood what was going on. And best of all, I knew what was going to happen the next day, because if you know that, then you can kind of start working well. But Bert asked me to go out early with him in a van that was going out because he wanted to look at an opening shot that he wanted to introduce a new area that the cast was going to be in, I think. So I went with him, nobody else, the driver and me in this car or van, I don't remember which. And we go out and there's a catering truck already there. The Teamsters are already there. The equipment trucks are there. And the Teamsters are having coffee and, breakfast or whatever. And Bert gets some orange juice and I get a cup of coffee, which I slug down real quick. And then we start going off on this pathway that leads, and it's kind of a jungle-like setting. I don't remember exactly where it was, but my impression is it was the same area as that tidal swamp we were in. The something Dickinson State Park.
Dickinson, yeah.
but it had a little slope to it, not much. I mean, a hill in Florida is like a freeway overpass, right? So,
Yeah.
it was a slope. And Bert goes, there, that's what I'm looking for. And I look up and there's some branches and the sun is coming up and it's, it's filtering through the branches and it's pretty. And I can see what he wants to do, catch some of the cast people coming up this pathway. So I go, okay, cool. So now I know the kind of thing to look for. So I'm looking up in the air and Bert's looking up in the air and I'm ahead of him. So for some reason, and I hear, whoa, behind me. Just whoa. And I turn around. And as I turn around, I see Bert's orange juice carton doing a slow, like 2001, rotation, and orange juice is spilling out of it. And it's being backlit by the sun. It's like a really bitchin' shot right there. And I look down to Bert, and he's over on the side of the path, kind of frozen. And I'm looking around, and he's looking at the other side of the path. And there's a rattlesnake there that, all rattlesnakes look big when you see them, I think. But I'm pretty sure it was as big around as my forearm at one point. And it was cold, a little chilly for Florida, 70? No, chilly.
That is cold.
This must have been the morning.
And it was very docile. It was coiled, but it didn't seem aggressive. But it was a rattlesnake. So whatever. So it took me 3 or 4 seconds to kind of figure that all out. And I'm looking at Bert, and all of a sudden there's 3 Teamsters there, and they all have pistols. And they're all pointing it at the rattlesnake. Snub-nosed pistols, not revolvers. These little, and there's 3 guys. And Bert's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Guys, no. It's okay. It's okay. And, that flabbergasted me more than the snake. I couldn't believe that. Those were real guns.
Yeah.
You mean these people are armed? That blew my mind. Until I got to know Florida Teamsters better, and then it was a matter of course. But
the funny thing to me is they needed 3 guns on one snake.
Well, 3 guns per snake. It's what's funny to me is that you would have thought he needed guns on King Kong, big gorilla, taking over the world. Oh no, you come to Florida, you're gonna need 3 guns per snake per capita.
Not just for the snakes, but also for the curious gators. It was like your first day on set in the swamp at Jonathan Dickinson Park.
How fast were those crew and actors jumping in and out of that water? Like, cut, I'm out.
Just like that. Yes. That's when that's where I realized, that this kind of strain the crew had been under, because the tidal swamp, which you can probably figure, the tide comes in and the tide goes out. So they tried to time the wide shots for low tide so you could see, the whole people walking. But then as the tide came in, gradually the crew and the cast had to put on waders to be able to handle the depth change. So they had to plot out the shots right, and then I wrote that there were 2 rangers that met us out there in little boats. And I thought, oh, that's cool. The park people are here, that's, shows where we've had permission and everything's cool with the location people and everything. And I didn't notice until we were getting ready to shoot that they both had rifles in their boats. And that gave me pause, obviously. But they just explained to me very calmly off to one side when I asked them, when we had a quiet moment and I could get away and ask them, what's with the rifle? They, there's, I can't remember if they said crocodiles or alligators. I think it was alligators.
Yeah,
but it matters at that point, right? They have teeth and they can kill us.
Yeah, I just like the fact that they called them curious.
Yeah, they said they get curious. That's how that was the way they.
That's a legal word. No, they get killed.
Isn't it? Yes. What a euphemism for terrifying. They'll tear your ass apart.
Yeah.
Anyway, and everybody was aware of it except me at the time. And then once I was aware of it, I was very heightened aware of it. I was looking everywhere. I thought, what in the world is going to? And I don't think we even saw one. Honestly, I don't remember seeing one.
We're gonna go back just a little bit because doing the story in a disservice, not setting the stage right here. Like I love how in the chapter you do such a really good job at conveying that like feeling like you're in an unfamiliar place and out of your element and trying to find your bearing, and setting the stage for that was so awesome. The way you get the call, you fly in, you get in, like it's always weird getting to a place at night too, just in itself, because you're not really there yet until you can see it in the light of day. So and then you go to Fort Lauderdale, and I looked this up on Google Maps. You essentially you fly into Fort Lauderdale, you go up to Stuart, Florida, pass in the location at Jonathan Dickinson Park where you
80
shoot
miles
the next day. Yeah, and then come back there. So that's where you're at. And then first day, that I love that, where you're in the van and you haven't had a chance to read the script yet, and you're in a production that's already in progress. You've got jet lag on top of it, on top of a 12-month production lag. And now you have to find your bearings in this production that's already off the ground and running in Florida, which adds a whole other element of like, you don't know what the hell is going to happen, or what. Now you're dealing with guns and alligators and snakes. It was the stage was set so well in the chapter. I just wanted to give it the justice so the people that are listening to these stories can understand the time and place. And I also did a weather search back to 1976 when you were here, for like what exactly the weather was in November, December area, 1976 in Stuart, Florida. So you spent Christmas in the 80s and 90s in the heat of the afternoon and the humidity. And the Florida humidity is something that I would attribute to you not having very many memories of Burt Gordon, and probably the frustration of some of the cast and crew. Florida humidity will piss you off.
It's only
quick.
second to Vegas humidity. They're both dangerous, but just different type of humidity.
Well, it's because you get all bundled up for the 60-degree morning, and then by 11 o'clock in the morning, it's like, why the fuck am I having to take this off again? I'm gonna have to put it back on tonight. Yeah.
What I'm noticing is that like you're like the Ace Ventura of cinematographers, AD, scout locations. I just thought about it. He was working with gorillas, ants, and now bats. I mean, you love the animals. David loves the animals.
I did. Yeah.
I know before we move, we kind of touched on Burt Gordon, and I'm not going to stay on him for too much longer because we already got that awesome story out of the way. But I did want to point out that he turned 100 this year.
He did.
And
Burt Gordon.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was crazy that he directed his last film in 2015 after a 26-year hiatus. It's called Secrets of a Psychopath. And he directed that at the age of 92. And his first film was done 60 years prior, King Dinosaur, in 1955. So that was pretty interesting. Like, I couldn't imagine taking on everything that directing a film requires at the age of 92. That's unbelievable.
We don't stop playing because we get old. We get old when we stop playing.
That's true.
That's the mentality you got to have, man.
That's true.
I take my hat off to that man. Yeah. And he handled Joan Collins also. So just saying.
You know what? I haven't finished this book yet. I'm really hoping there's some more Jones Collins stories in here. Well, I'll be calling you directly on Zoom then. We'll just have our own chat.
I did see though that she was nominated for the Best Actress Saturn Award.
She was great. She was a full-on female actress, and she had her Walkman and her tunes, and she was fantastic. But she was a handful because she was larger than life. You know, she was trying to do her best. It was a very physical part in some areas. It was not fun. Who wants to get in the water with alligators? Please, ask the Key Grip. He didn't want to do it, and now they're asking, these women to be in there doing it. So you could understand that there was some drama going on, and there were script changes and stuff off to the side too, which I never did catch up with. But she was you turned her head when she went by. She was interesting.
Another piece of IMDb trivia. Let's see if they strike again. According to Joan Collins, is that there was a delay in the arrival of stunt doubles. It forced the actors to do the canoe capsizing themselves. Do you know if that was true?
That was before my time, I think. I don't remember any canoe capsizing.
Okay.
And I would
Joan
remember
Collins
that.
remembers.
Yeah, and she would
I-
remember.
I'm going to let you read this intro, but then I want to go right into it. Well, you know what? I'll read it. It's right there. Now, we go 16 years later to 1992 in LA, chapters 50 and 51. If you haven't picked up the book, available now. Best Seat in the House, David McGiffert. You're working with Tim Burton on the set of Batman Returns. And while there are a bunch of stories about this in the book on IMDb, I just want to jump right into the middle of one thing and say this. I've been told my entire life, pictures are worth 1,000 words. But in your case, they were only worth 2. You're fired. Like that, when I read, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. This can't be true. I had to go research on this, and it just, you don't have to say it, but I'm going to say it. There are studio heads, and then there's studio dickheads, and I think you were met by a studio dickhead, and I'm going to leave it there.
Batman Returns is set during Christmas, and the holidays play into the story in many significant ways. Gotham's Christmas tree recurring throughout the film. There's snow, Christmas decorations, and carols are heard all over the thing. But do you consider Batman Returns a Christmas movie?
Once you got on the stage, but once you went out for lunch, it was a summer movie. It was like a very hot September, as I remember. I mean, and I can't remember exactly when it started shooting, but it was beyond toasty outside. I mean, it was a Southern California full-on hot. Just no ifs, ands, or buts. But Tim, wanted to be able to see people's breath in the film. I think ultimately that's not quite how it all turned out, but there were times when you saw breath. But we refrigerated those sound stages down to somewhere in the 40s. So, we were dressed like we were on Mammoth Mountain,
It's kind of ironic that Empire of the Ants gave you essentially put you in Christmas in Florida in summer heat, and Batman Returns corrected that and gave you Christmas in September in LA.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Good trade.
Good trade-off. As he mentioned the fans earlier, and if I was doing a little bit more research on the model of the fans, I don't know the exact model of it, but from the research I did, those fans were actually like the sound was almost unbearable, and that's why I believe you put it in the book that you guys got the walkie-talkies, which was brilliant. But again, it leads me back to the picture to why you almost. I'll let you tell it a little bit. It's your story, not mine.
One of the sets involved shooting Danny DeVito's character, the Penguin, in his underground lair, which was supposedly the sewers underneath Gotham City. This was a stage that we actually had at Universal Studios because that was the only one that was big enough to handle the size stage we needed and the amount of water we needed. And the reason that we needed a lot of water, not only to show the sewers, but it also was because we had real penguins that we had imported to use on the set, along with Danny DeVito and his henchmen. The real penguins became a whole sideline that a lot of people on the show had to deal with. So not only did the water have to be cold in the set, but the set had to be cold so that we could see breath and keep the penguins healthy, so that every time we weren't filming, those fans were on. I don't know whether they used the same fans from Warner Brothers and brought them over, or whether these are other fans. I didn't track stuff like that, but those same damn fans were there, and they made a lot of noise. So when we were on that set, everybody on the crew who was working in the set had a radio and a headset. My AD crew had it all the time. That way we kept our chatter down. We didn't bother people with our radio traffic back and forth, but now everybody had them. So in between shots, I didn't have to do a lot of running around to different sections to find people. All I do is switch to the channel I needed. If I needed the prop people to do something, or if I had a question for somebody, I'd switch over to whatever department was on that channel, ask the question, somebody'd hear me amidst all the noise. And it saved a lot of running around and a lot of screwed up communications. But I stood in one place quite a while. And at one point, somewhere in the shooting on that set, I was standing at the top of probably a 15-foot stairway on a level of this sewers, Danny DeVito's sewer. And I'm talking to people on the radio, and I'm switching channels. The radio's on my hip. And I see a group of people come in the stage door and stand at the bottom of the stairs. And they're all looking up at me. And I can't remember how many there were, but it seemed like there were like 6 or 7 people, maybe a few more. And they're just looking, and somebody's talking, and I don't recognize anybody. And I'm not looking real hard because I'm hearing people in my head and I'm talking to people. And then I turned around to do something, and I turned back and they were gone. And maybe 10 minutes later, I'm still in the same place, and I'm pacing back and forth, and we're getting close to being ready to go. And I see Tim come in the door, and he comes trotting up the steps, and he's real lanky, you know, so he has this great pace, you know, boop, 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 and he comes up and, hey man, how's it going? And he's kind of serious. And I said, fine, it's you know, we're getting there, almost there. He said, okay. So everything's okay? And I went, yeah. He goes, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. I said, Tim, what's up? And he goes, oh. He says, yeah, it's just somebody's asking about, what's going on, and why are you standing there? And I said, well, I don't have to run around. Everybody's on a radio, remember? And so I don't have to do that. I don't have to run off and come back, and then the people I went to find aren't there, and I just call them. And it's working really good. And we really are almost ready. I mean, it's really a couple of minutes away. I'll send somebody to get you in a minute. And he goes, yeah, okay. And he trots down the stairs. He says, call me. Okay. And he goes out the door. And I didn't hear anything about it for the rest of the day. And then I think the next day, somebody who was in Tim's trailer, which is where that group of people went, and one of them was one of the heads of Warner Brothers, and I'm not going to say who it was. And he went in and told Tim he wanted Tim to fire the AD. The guy's standing there and he's not doing anything. And this is a gigantic, expensive, time-consuming set. And the AD, I mean, we watched him. He's just standing there. And Tim, went out and came back, and said, I don't really think you know what you saw, kind of thing, And if you're going to fire my AD, I don't think I'm going to be willing to be on the show anymore. And I think he said it that directly. That was the feeling I got from this guy who told me about it. He just said it. He didn't mince around. And Tim doesn't do uptight shit. He's very kind. Has nice ways of putting hard things. But I from the impression I got was it was pretty straight out. And I just remember thinking, who does that? This guy's super seriously committed to this project. Anyway, it got me, it's just one of those things. And one of the things I wanted to tell my kids, which is why I started writing these stories. I told you this, I started writing these for my kids. That's why, because that's the kind of thing that makes you, realize there are people pulling for you. There are people, you're helping people, but they're helping you.
I think it speaks right to your work ethic before, because again, you got Robin Williams doing impersonations of you. You got Tim Burton pulling for you. So again, clearly you're that gentle soul and you have a good work ethic. But one of the things people may not know is that you're very fluent, and you can't find this on Rosetta Stone. See, I do practice some of the stuff I talk about. You can't find this on Rosetta Stone. You speak fluent Tim Burtonisms. There's a portion in your book to where Tim's sitting with the cinematographer and some of the crew. You're there, and he tells them the type of shot he wants, and he just walks off. And then the cinematographer comes up to you like, hey, can I talk to you real quick and ask you something? What is that like, having to be able to know what Tim wanted and be able to decipher to somebody else? Could you talk about that for a second?
Well, neither one of us knew exactly what he was talking about. And that's he just wanted to make sure that he hadn't missed something. Mm-hmm. This happened a number of times, not all the time at all. And that's the thing, I always worry that, everybody will think that that's how Tim was all the time. It certainly wasn't. Tim was highly organized, unbelievably enthusiastic. I mean, you just wanted to do anything this guy wanted because he'd get so excited and he could see it in his head, and he wanted us to be able to see it. And I think sometimes he just thought we could,
Yeah.
And so I want him to do, I want him to come out here like, and then he'll, Batman will, and it'll be, it'll be great. It'll just be, and we're all like, yeah, we got it. Maybe just a little more detail. Who is this over here? Anyway, not really. But I mean, who gets to work on shit like that? I mean, and I just want to back up for 1 second. And you're saying, oh, like I'm this groovy soul and stuff. I never got to see other ADs work on sets, but I hear stories of things that happen to them that are very akin to the kinds of things that happen to me. I don't want to ever give the impression that I'm like, special. This happens on films. You probably do it with your own ADs when you guys are doing stuff. It's a weird position. AD is a really strange position because you are visible. And so a lot of times it's pretty easy to come up with a mannerism to mimic in a sense, because you're out there in front of everybody doing this stuff, not actually understanding that this is a mannerism. It's just who you are. But Robin glommed onto that. He was just like, whoop, whoop, I'll take that, and he just can do it. Anyway.
Well, I'm sure being an AD in general puts you in a unique vantage point to see the most of what's happening on a production, and everything's kind of happening around you. But that's only part of the story. Like if you like the whole bottom part of this is like it's the fact that how the amazing productions that you've worked on, the amazing people that you've shared sets with, the cast of characters and the sets is what the stories are incredible, and I'm sure they're unique to you. There's no way to take that away, but I'm sure people have similar experiences or things like that. But just the amount of productions that you worked on, I mean, that's incredible. You're underselling yourself.
Well, one thing I want to say about him is he's managed to accomplish something that I've never seen done. There's only one industry, and I do mean one, where you can get a job interview on the floor, and that's the film industry.
Oh, wait, before you get to the job interview on the floor, we're all over the place. He almost got fired. We haven't even got the job yet.
Oh, yeah.
But I do want to go back to your first, and this is the way it kind of plays out in your book too, which is why I love the book, because it's almost like Pulp Fiction, because you get chapter 50 is you're on the set, chapter 51 is you're getting hired, almost getting fired.
52 is Christopher Walken, just in case you were wondering.
The introduction to Tim Burton, you so efficiently describe him in one detail, saying he came out wearing the same clothes he wore before, and that's so telling of I felt that in my soul, because especially on a film production and with editing, it's what is really the day before? What is really tomorrow on a film production? This is...
Now, my call time was at 7 p.m., so I got till 7 p.m. the next day to shower.
Yeah, I just thought that was really interesting how you described him and the way you worded his mannerisms when he came out with that childlike enthusiasm, which then segues us nicely, childlike enthusiasm,
to the floor.
We're sitting Indian style on a floor. What?
Come on down here, man. Come down here. Did he say you to come on down?
Haunches.
He said, you don't mind, do you? I'm just more comfortable down here.
That's
good to me.
Yeah.
And then to just sit there, and that would be so fun. To talk to Tim Burton about, you have all this amazing stuff that you're going to do together on the horizon, and then you're talking about movies that you loved and ways that could play into Batman Returns. Is there anything that didn't make it into the book that you took away from that sit down, that first meeting with him?
I think what I took away from it was that he was an extremely bright person, but he had the kid alive in him. And if somebody has that going for them, I'm there, because that to me is the key to really living. If you have the kid alive in you, and Tim Burton had the kid alive. And when he sat on the floor like that, that was what a kid does, you know? And when I saw that, I was like, I'm in. If this guy wants me to work with him, I am so there.
Yeah.
And because I mean, yes, it's a good movie. Yes, he's very well known. But when you see that quality in somebody, you know you're going to be able to communicate with them. You know, at least I did. You know, my kid can communicate with that kid. And it was the same thing with Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise has the kid alive in him.
Mhm.
And if you talk to the kid is there, you know, and the movie star is there, the Scientologist is there, the producer is there, the wealthy person is there, the famous person is there, but the kid is there. If you get to the kid, you're on good ground.
I think that's fair to say. You know what? It's some. I don't want to say certain actors mail it in, but at a certain point, that, you know, they've gotten that status, and like you say, maybe the kid grows up in them, and that's not a bad thing. But I agree with you when it comes to Tom Cruise and certain actors like him. You still see that they have a fire for what they actually do, and they want to be the best at it. I can definitely see that innocence in them.
Yes, and sometimes it's not that, you know, it's not like it's there all the time. And I think many people in film that I met had that quality, and it would go dormant when they're hard at work and they're doing stuff that's hard and they don't want to screw around. They want to get it done. But then, you know, you have a minute in between, and they'll tell you something really funny that happened. And you see, you know, that the kid's there. You know, the kid saw all that. The kid's telling you, you know. And I love that quality about people, but I especially loved it on film sets, because a lot of people had that going for them. They had this, I don't know what it is. I mean, I call it the kid. That's my shorthand for myself. You know, I don't know if it translates for other people.
I think that's a perfect way to put it.
You know,
it's almost like an eccentricity, like a lack of ego to be able to
because the kid wanted to act. The kid didn't necessarily want to be this world famous star, but they did. They wanted to act, and they're still doing that.
Yeah, I think the kid is alive in everybody. It's just a matter of like being eccentric or having less of an ego enough to let the kid live out loud.
Yeah, or unless it's damaged, the kid gets damaged.
That's true too. That's a very big part of it.
Definitely.
Before we, I have a few like Batman trivia things that when I was reading through about the production to come up with questions, things that you might be able to confirm or deny, and then we have a few Christmas related questions to wrap everything up.
I see what you did there. Are you going to put a bow on it?
Yeah, I will.
Ew.
Okay, so the at least these are the words of IMDb, not us. At least 50% of the Warner Brothers lot was taken up with Gotham City sets, and that they were constructed to be mobile, often shifted around between days of filming, leaving Michelle Pfeiffer to get lost on her way to filming many days. Do you know if there's any truth to that?
The first part I know is true. They had an unbelievable amount of stages that were devoted to Batman. That's true.
Because Batman was such a huge success, right? They were like throwing the whole bucket at Batman Returns because Batman blew up. And
also, it had a tremendous amount of interiors. You know, that whole movie, even the outdoor stuff, was interiors. So, you know, on stages, needed stages. So they took up a tremendous amount of stage space. I forget what the percentage was, but it was really big. And that the biggest stage at Universal as well. Michelle getting lost. I don't know about that. That may be, but she's a pretty self-sufficient woman, person. And, you know, she doesn't do damsel in distress very well. You know, she doesn't do that. So if she got lost, maybe the next time, I don't think she got lost twice, you know? We changed stages and stuff, and it is confusing. I mean, look, I got lost. You know, sometimes you walk in there and all the stages are essentially the same. If you don't track what's behind them so that you have a landscape to put them in, it's pretty easy to get crossed up.
Yeah, I can see that, especially if they're changing around. It's like, wait a second, I was a left at the Penguin lair yesterday. Why
They
is it?
moved
Yeah. Speaking of Penguin, Danny DeVito, his makeup as Penguin took 3 hours to be applied every morning.
At least.
And it said that he removed one of the cabinets in the makeup trailer and put in a Laserdisc machine and a television. And he would show his favorite movies and watch them in the mirror while he was getting his makeup done.
I never was in his trailer. I don't know.
Okay. Well, let's actually speaking
I
of.
never went there. Never bought
right.
him.
Well, there's things out
But
there.
I can tell you who you can ask. There's a guy named Michael Rizzoli who was my PA on that show, who is now an assistant director and very tight with Danny. You could ask Michael.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
Maybe we can get Frank on the show.
Or I'll ask him and I'll get back to you.
That would be great. Yeah.
Even better. Now they were saying that he, he's Danny's definitely method on a lot of his roles, that he stayed in character even in between sets, scenes, and even furthermore, there was supposed to be a scene to where a stunt double was supposed to be used when they're throwing garbage at him and everything, but he refused to do it because he was still so in character. Can you speak to that?
Yes, I think that's all true.
Okay.
There's
That
only
sounds
one
good.
stunt that Danny did not do.
Oh yeah.
And a very good friend of mine who was one of the second unit directors, but also one of the stunt coordinators, Charlie Kroll, did do. But Danny did everything else. And the Penguins actually at one point kind of ganged up on him in one of the scenes, and they got after him, and they were like nibbling at him and stuff. And it was kind of weird, because nobody was ready for that. We'd never seen any behavior like that. And Danny certainly wasn't ready. I think he was waist deep in water, and they were there, and they're like, nah, 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 and he was like, whoa, what's up?
Well, y'all had them all hopped up on that fresh fish. Y'all kept giving them to keep them all lively, all that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
California sushi. This one was interesting to me because there's been recently, well, not recently, actually like a few years ago, social media did what social media does, and it had there was this controversy about, is Tim Burton a racist? He never puts black people in his films. And then he had pretty much just said straight up, no, the characters that I write, I just don't see a black person playing those characters most of the time. And then with Wednesday, which is I haven't got a chance to watch it yet, but
have you seen it?
No, I've been watching it peripherally.
You absolutely have to sit down and watch what they've done with that, and watch that girl and listen to that dialogue. Holy smokes.
It looks
what
really
a good job.
And
What a
it
good
has
job.
to be good to be beating Stranger Things as far as the watch time on Netflix. But
That's
now
crazy.
that it's reignited the controversy, because apparently he did cast some black actors in this production, but people are saying that, oh yes, you'd cast 3 black people, but they're all antagonists. So what say you now? And his publicist, he was there like, I'm not even going to. This isn't even worth forwarding to the director.
Exactly.
But that brings me to the IMDb trivia on Batman Returns. Robin was originally going to be a part of Batman Returns,
Mhm.
and Marlon Wayans was actually already paid and cast to play that part. But it was taken out because it was going in too many different directions, or whatever the reason was. They weren't ready to introduce him yet, or it didn't fit with the new story. I guess I'm hoping that you having personal experience with Tim Burton could add a little bit more of a shush to that social media quell of what's happening surrounding his name.
I can't imagine on any level that he is racist. I just can't. He's not that kind of person. Not the person that I worked around and saw. Now, that doesn't mean I saw every aspect of Tim. For sure I didn't.
Well, you had the best seat in the house now. No, I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you.
God, I love having you around, Royal. You just you keep everybody on their toes. Do not go to sleep. It never occurred to me. I never heard anything like that at all.
Well, I've heard some of it, but my thing is this: me and him talked about this about a week ago. I said I don't take it as racist at all. I take it as if you grew up in the North or the South Pole, and you grew up around freezing environments, and somebody asked you, "Man, why don't you ever put enough summer or Bahama breeze into your film?" Well, that's not what I know. I don't hate the summer. I like the sun. I can't speak to it, and I wouldn't want him trying to speak to something he didn't know about. He's telling you he's an artist. Don't ask me why I'm using this brush or painting with this color. Make your own damn painting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's a good point. And it's, I mean, it's, you know, it's such a difficult subject to speak coherently about another person, to be able to see that kind of thing in another person, in the kind of relationship that you have on a film set, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the whole focus is so out there, you know. It's not really about that, you know, is this guy doing this stuff for a certain reason? It's like, this is what's going on out there, and the focus is kind of more outward.
Correct.
In a funny way.
But you never witnessed Tim Burton explicitly say, no, that person can't play that person because he's too not white enough.
Yeah, like that. No, that don't seem like. Put it this way: had he done Edward Scissorhands and he had cast him as black, then people would have been mad. Like, oh, you finally do a black person. His hands are weapons. Like, no, he's just telling you a story. Just read it, watch it.
Edward Scissorhands is a good example.
You know, and the same thing with the Legend of Sleepy Hollow or whatever that was, the Headless Horseman. You know, I mean, that's in. You know,
lore. That's
Britain. You know, like, you know.
I mean, and in fairness, because I read all the Batman comic books, I didn't see one black person in there. So if anything, he's just being true to the material.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
I think that is true as well. But again, I can't imagine it. I don't know where did you hear this? Where did this come up?
The most toxic place on it, just Twitter whispers. Just yeah, and then, you know, of course, like, you know, some of the gossip publications will take those things, turn them into headlines, and run with it. So my goal with this whole portion was to create a reverse headline that you know, when somebody Googles Tim Burton racist, now they get a little bit of the other side of the story, a more full picture. Because I grew up watching Tim Burton. I've never. It's like I've never even thought, why should, like, I don't know. It's just hard. It's like when you're writing what, like you say, you write what you know. He grew up in, I think, the suburbs of California, and Edward Scissorhands was specifically, and I think a lot of his characters are always just based on people that he grew up watching, that he experienced. Yeah, it's a good point.
It was a lot less racially diversified when he grew up. A lot.
I like the way he just gave it to him straight. He's like, that these are the characters that I wrote, and this is how I see people playing. I'm like,
no artist should have to apologize
it's
for
not
that.
Something that warrants a sorry.
Well, the other thing is, you know, I always, and I know you do too. I mean, I'm preaching to the converted, but I mean, anything that's coming off of Twitter, as a thing to hang your hat on as knowledge and fact, I don't go there.
I find it, and you're very right, but I find it ironic that I'm pretty sure somebody's put this online, maybe they haven't. A lot of people are on TikTok, and I find this ironically that TikTok you're wasting your time at most times. TikTok, get it? TikTok. You waste a lot of time on there, ironically, but that's where most people spend their days. And number two, Twitter, where everybody puts out their little, like you just said, can say whatever. You ever heard this saying growing up? Or a little birdie dropped something in my ear. It doesn't mean the shit's true. And now everybody has a little birdie. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, well, I got a little birdie for you guys.
Oh, hey.
Let's get into the holidays with all that said, and wrap this thing up nicely. There's our four holiday themed questions. The favorite gift. What is the favorite gift that you've received from a film production or a coworker, like after being done with the film?
I have two. Tim Burton gave me one of the lamps that were on Christopher Walken's desk because I flipped out when I saw them. They were made by hand. They were made in the machine shop by the production designer, and they're really cool. I still have it, and I'll send you a picture of it. It's amazing.
Awesome.
And Tim actually, somebody wanted them all. They knew what they were seeing too, and they tried to bag them all. I think there were, I can't remember how many. There are not many. And Tim got one. Tim nailed one for me. So
That's
thank you,
awesome.
Tim. And then Claudia Weil, who I did a movie called It's My Turn with Joe Kleberg and Michael Douglas. And Claudia Weil gave me a set of dishes. And this is no BS. Our family, every day from that time on, kids growing up, now tonight's meal, every meal, we have eaten off those dishes. They're gorgeous.
Wow.
It's called the Botanical Garden. It's I think there's a picture of one of the plates in the book, actually, because I just thought that, well, what a thing, and of course it would be a woman who would give you dishes, but it was perfect. What a perfect gift.
We got to send him some cups for New Year since you use everything. Let's send him some cups for New Year.
That's not a bad idea. We still owe him a shirt.
Damn it, David.
Yeah.
What is your
Don't try to.
no, because I want to be a twofer. What is maybe growing up and then as an adult favorite Christmas movie?
Well, let's see. As an adult, Home Alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I laugh every time I see that movie. I love Danny. Who is it? Danny Aiello? No, Danny. Who is that? He's hilarious.
Oh, Daniel Stern.
Yes, Danny Stern and
Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
Oh God, man.
Snakes. I didn't see no. I don't know no snakes. I don't know no snakes.
I realized that there was a sadistic streak somewhere within me when I watching like the last 30 minutes of that movie. It's so funny watching people get hurt. It is. I mean,
the way they did it was just classic. And there's something about pratfalls and getting hit with irons dropped on your head and stuff. I don't know the way I think it was more the way they did it. They just
it was a modern day color version of a kid, all the Three Stooges becoming one inside of a kid and tackling bad people. And I think that was a secret ingredient. Like if a kid really stopped murderers and bad people, this is how we would do it.
Yeah.
It was sadistic,
very sadistic. Because he wasn't just hurting them, like the branding, like all these things could have killed them. Even in Home Alone 2, the bricks coming from like 90 feet high should have killed him. Like it's crazy.
And then when they try to make the best part to me is when they try to go across the window or his zip line to the thing, and he just cuts it, and they come.
They're like, no. Yeah, so that was really good here.
And as a kid, I'm trying to remember. Nothing really comes to mind.
I mean, you can cop out and say A Christmas Story if you want. We'll allow that.
Okay, but I don't remember that.
Oh, he gave me a little. Never mind. You wouldn't. You haven't seen all the Ocean's 11 movies. Never mind. That was a good impersonation, by the way. Let me ask you. Other than Festivus, what's your favorite Christmas tradition or holiday tradition?
Well, I think stockings for the kids and getting all the stuff that goes in the stockings. My wife is a fiend shopper, but not without purpose. Everything has a purpose. But man, you can't believe some of the stuff she finds to put in the kids' stockings. It is magic. And how she does it, I don't know. I don't have that gene. But this year, I nailed it this year.
All right.
For the stocking. Okay. Yeah, it was nice. It was very good. They're both getting it.
All right. All right. Now,
I got a residual check. I'm not rolling in money, guys, but I got a good residual check. Thank you. Go. And that's where it went. And it fits in the stocking. I'm not allowed to buy anything. It won't fit in the stocking. And man, it was close.
I'm glad he said that word. People always ask me why I chose acting other than loving it. I can still get paid off shit I did years ago. Just send it in. I don't care when you send it. Just send it in. I don't care.
The last question we have is your favorite, your best Christmas memory. Or not, I don't want to say best because I don't want to make the other one sound not as great, but just a great Christmas memory that comes to mind.
Oh, God. I really think just sitting here in this living room with my wife and my kids and us sitting back. We've gotten up now at 2:00 in the morning to come down, and I leave like footprints with ash and snow on it, and like cookies that are partially eaten, and a note that kids used to do when they're little, and they have little checks by them, if we've gotten what they wanted. And the fireplace is kind of screwed up.
Looks fine to me.
And we would wake ourselves up at 2 a.m. We had everything hidden in our upstairs closet and come creeping downstairs and put everything around, eat the cookies and spill a little milk around, and then to come down and watch to see, did we score? First of all, did we fool them with Santa's visit? And second of all, are the presents hitting home? And it's pretty cool. I mean, you guys have kids.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's
Is there
nothing
anything
like
better
it.
than that? There's
It's
nothing better than
nothing.
I think the only thing
know?
better than having a kid on Christmas is being a kid on Christmas.
Now, I still
Yeah.
think the
And-
adults
and-
get the better part of it, though. I
Well,
think we do.
Yeah, we do, but only because I love watching, I love giving Adeline those things that I remember enjoying so much. The magic of Christmas and the family and togetherness and everything just feeling warm and magical. And
Yeah.
the coziness is, getting to relive. Like when I give her those moments that I had growing up, it's like getting to have those moments all over again.
It's 10
Like,
times
That's right. That's what I was going to say. The perspective on it from where you are, and it brings back your memories. But I mean, you're seeing it. That's going to, it's going to last for them too.
It becomes threefold, really, because then you get an appreciation for whoever your parents were, whatever parental figures you had in your life when you were younger, what they had to do to sacrifice to get those things. And it's like, damn, let me just call them and say thanks one more time.
It's
no
just kidding.
That is crazy.
Okay, you're not going to ask me what my favorite thing to eat on Christmas is?
Well, I was going to ask you, but you've already said it. So what is your favorite thing to eat on Christmas?
You know what pavlova is? You know what a
I've
pavlova
heard of it, but
is?
I can't spell it.
Well, it's meringue and ice cream and some other stuff. You should look it up. It is one of the best tasting things on the planet. And my wife is a chef, and she will make it if we ask, with enough intent.
Is it like a dessert or a?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. One last thing I did want to say, I was going to ask you what, other than that secret gift that you got that you nailed, I'm going to tell everybody else another gift they can nail for people. The best seat in the house with Dave McGiffert. You guys, seriously. And I mean, I would be saying this even if you weren't here. Like I'm a blurred. I freak out over film and I freak out over movies. And to read this and to read these stories, I just feel like we've interviewed over 200 people at this point, but I feel like these are all little interviews with people, but it's the same person and it's you. And I just really feel like you have some great experiences. And so guys, please, David's going to put up a link right now where you guys can get the book from. Please check it out. Check out our interview with David. He's a friend of the show. And more importantly, he's a friend. See how I did that?
Thank you.
No, thank you.
That's very nice of you to say. I mean, it's written for the kid, right? That's what it's for. It's for so people will see from an enthusiast's eye, what it was like.
And one last thing I did want to say, speaking of that really quick, was that, again, I'm glad that you did do this. It's the same reason me and him talk about the reason we did the show. We haven't wrote a book yet, but guess what? When inevitably we all have an end date. Final Destination told us, so we all got to leave this earth one day. And when we leave, it's our legacy we leave behind, but we're fortunate enough that we can leave things like books and media, all the shows we do, all the interviews we do. This book will live on forever in time. And one day some kid who never probably even thought about writing movies one day is going to pick this up, and you may spawn a whole new generations of cinematographers or ADs or people who just want to get into film just to tell these stories. And that's all because you took the time out to make something like this happen.
Wouldn't that be fun?
It will be
awesome. And it's a believable story.
Because they're true.
I know.
All right. Just making sure.
You guys, I hope you have good holidays.
You too.
Oh, yes. And
You've
we'll talk
made
again
mine. How kind you are to do this, really. I mean, you should, I hope you can see it from my side. I never ever have seen somebody step up like this to help the way you guys have. It's really caught me by surprise, and I love it. I have such a good time. Thank you.
Thank you. No, it feels weird when you thank us for doing this, because we thank you for doing this, because we're not just talking out of our ass. Like we really, and I mean, we really
Did
enjoy
read,
this
and yes.
stuff. Like this is what we started this show for, was to talk about these kinds of stories and get into the little nitty gritty moments in between to give us more of a perspective of the movies that we loved and grew up with. And the crazy thing is that we started TTFT to do this, and had we met you sooner, we probably just could have done just this series with like Best Seat, and it would have fulfilled everything we started the show for, because it's all.
But now
right
he
here.
has his own segment, and I'm going to tell you this: I don't want to end the show until we finish all the chapters. So if we do 3 at a time,
No! I promised him that if somebody watched all of the Best Seats, that they'd still have to read the book.
Oh, they got you. They got you.
So we have to be choosing.
Well,
Well,
listen,
I got to tell you, I've seen some other shows you guys have done. They are they're wild. I mean, they're wild. I mean, I am not a wild person, so these are kind of sedate interviews, and I understand that. And I thank you for allowing me to be my usual sedate self. I mean, I've seen some serious shit on your shows where people let loose with you guys, and it is crazy what you guys do. It is so fun. So don't stop that part.
Thank you.
Thank you. We got to be well-rounded, like a circle. We got to be well-rounded.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But we'll keep in touch and have a very happy holidays.
Tell the family we say happy holidays. We'll talk to you soon. And please keep up the good work. And again, listen, it's always a pleasure. And nothing but peace and prosperity and health to you and your family.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. And I hope I talk to you soon. Just talk. Okay.
And you will.
Yeah,
Thank you so
too,
much.
David.